Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing Twisters, directed by Lee Isaac Chung, starring Daisy Edgar Jones, Glenn Powell and Anthony Ramos. The film serves as a standalone sequel to the 1996 original, and we basically follow a former storm chaser lured out of retirement and back into the field to tackle some big tornadoes as they break across Oklahoma. And Twisters is basically the big summer blockbuster this year that isn't really tied to an already existing IP or modern day franchise. Sure, it technically serves as a sequel, but this isn't a sequel to a billion-dollar franchise. It's not a film that's had multiple sequels and is a film that everyone heralds and knows about. So it definitely had a lot more legwork to do in competing with the rest of the summer's releases. It has drawn comparisons to Top Gun Maverick. In my opinion, that's a bit of an untouchable feat to achieve, but we're going to tuck in, guys. Twisters is basically an action drama set against the backdrop of being a disaster movie. You come into a film like this expecting to be thrilled, you expect some degree of spectacle, you expect some degree of heart to ground that spectacle, and for me, Twisters had most of that. If you've seen any kind of promotional material for Twisters, I feel like you know exactly what you're going to get from this sort of film. It doesn't really subvert any expectation, it doesn't feel like it's doing anything particularly new, but what it does well. I think the biggest thing Twisters achieves is bringing an energy and a kind of real sense of kinetic fun to this film. That is partly due to, I think, Glenn Powell's character playing that larger-than-life, charismatic cowboy type. I think it's also partly due to the country music in the soundtrack and just the general score, which really kind of capitalizes on the momentum of the film. And then it's also because of the Twisters themselves. The film has a really good grasp on its pace, and because the narrative is following these storm chasers and following their kind of love of the chase, you feel like you're along for the ride. Daisy Edgar Jones as the lead character plays a very kind of archetypal role. She does a great job. She's a very expressive actor. She plays a kind of classic redemption arc story in this film, rediscovering her passion for her fieldwork and learning to validate past trauma with present triumph. Glenn Powell in this film is basically how I imagine his character's gonna get an arc in Top Gun 3. He's the egotist, but he's the egotist who has a lot more going on than meets the eye. He's got this celebrity status going on around him, but as the film progresses, you realise he's part of this much more humanitarian effort in doing what he's doing. But Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn Powell have fantastic chemistry. I think they really kind of anchor the film. The film does stall a little bit in its more quieter moments, but they're the predictable character beats that need to be done to give the character arcs the payoff they need. And let's talk about the spectacle. I think all the storm chasing scenes were really well done. They're all kind of part car chase, part getaway sequence. The off-road driving, the shaky cam, the country music blasting to kind of hype up the mood. They're all really well put together. And I think combining it in a degree of science also helped tether the film to a bit more reality rather than just suspension of belief. I've got to say the opening prologue sequence I think was really well done. You kind of knew exactly where it was building to, but they did it really well. And there were some great storm chasing sequences. I think the only one that was a bit anticlimactic for me was the final one. I think they should have made the final F5 tornado sequence set piece a little bit bigger and a little bit more kind of tension fueled. For the most part, our hero characters are reduced to crowd control at the end, and it feels like we slightly waste their potential building up to that. And I think they could have just done a little bit more to make that final set piece a bit more high stakes and got a bit more visually creative with it as well. I would have liked to have seen a kind of longer one take sequence with characters kind of running down streets, avoiding debris. I think that would have been really effective. So I think the build up to and the actual execution of that final tornado sequence should have been a bit more thrilling than it actually was, but that is a minor complaint. I still really enjoyed the film. The soundtrack is top tier, whether that's Luke Combs' Ain't No Love in Oklahoma, heralding the arrival of Glenn Powell, Lainey Wilson's more melancholic, contemplative song as Daisy Edgar Jones is driving and reflecting. The film has some perfect song choices for every mood. The score itself really gets you pumped as well, and the music really feels like a character itself, especially kind of lending to this country western feel, and it definitely has that old school action adventure film romp written all over it. Disaster films are films that we don't get all that often, and I think ultimately it's because they're CGI reliant and oftentimes very bland. Twisters shows that they can be fun, they can be rooted in somewhat engaging character drama, as long as you have interesting characters who clash in fun ways and also gel through their chemistry. So all in all, I'd say Twisters is your typical generic summer blockbuster, but it is done so much better than so many others that get released. It is a film cementing Glenn Powell as one of the next leading men of the film industry. It is a film designed to be entertaining entertaining successfully is entertaining, not in new ways, but in typical ways done well. You're not going to get anything new from watching Twisters, but what you are going to get is a return to form for this type of film. It is absolutely worth watching, guys, so if you have seen it, do drop a comment below. I would love to know your thoughts. Please also consider liking and subscribing to the channel. That is always a huge help for me. And in the meantime, we'll see you for the next review.